Hi everyone, this is Spill the Wine. I know it's been a minute and I haven't uploaded in a while. I wanted to come in and check in here about The Promised Land. You know that show I talked about that premiered on ABC about a couple months ago now? Or maybe a month ago, not even? Well, unfortunately, I found out that I moved to Hulu. I've been watching every new episode following The Bachelor, so I can just stay in the know and in case I wanted to do a follow-up. And then recently I noticed new episodes weren't showing after The Bachelor. And I looked into it a couple weeks ago and I learned that amid some low ratings since the premiere, unfortunately, the show pulled it from the live broadcast and now you can only stream it on Hulu. That is unfortunate news to hear. I did find the show intriguing. It did show some behind-the-scenes look into how wine is made. Granted, more of the family drama behind the family making the wine, but nonetheless, it was definitely showing a different lens and perspective on the Mexican-American family experience. Since I missed some episodes that they haven't been broadcasting live, I tuned into Hulu earlier today and I caught up on some stuff now that we're at episode 7. The last that I watched live on ABC, I had seen Father Ramos, or who we learned was Billy, who was husband to Letty, aka Juana, who was the young girl in the backstory with Joe and Billy. And there was this love triangle thing going on, and it's only confirmed later on in the episode, but Father Ramos has very much immersed himself back in the family, and he showed up to the house and was welcomed by his nephews and nieces, and very much so by his son, Mateo, but Father Ramos seemed hesitant at first being so welcomed by him because he felt he needs to earn the respect and love from his son because he abandoned him. However, Letty does not seem to have the same feelings. She was a bit cold at first when he first returned. In this latest episode, episode 7, we see that Letty is very much comfortable with him emotionally and coming to him for support and talking to him. And speaking of Mateo, in one of the last episodes I saw, he was actually getting help from Carmen, the youngest sister of the family, to get his wine business up and running. Well, last we left on that, Joe had given Mateo an offered land in addition to some vintage grapes that he wasn't using. At first, Mateo was upset because he said the grapes weren't good. How can he make a good blend out of this? And then Carmen came up with the idea to make it into a sangria. So after some testing and learning, some trial and error, they tried it and it was delicious. And it seems like it did pretty well upon its release. With the success of that sangria, it's no surprise that Joe now sees Mateo in a different light and is now getting the respect that he had always wanted from his stepfather. Then going to his love interest, Daniela. Unfortunately, she was not in this episode, and I'm not sure where I missed it in the last episode that I saw live, but in between that and episode 7, not only did Daniela leave the country, but they also got married. Daniela and Mateo had a wedding. It must have been short and sweet, nothing fancy, and she was sent back home because she does not have papers. But it looks like now that she married Mateo, they're going to go through the formal process so that she can come back to the United States legally. Now moving on to Veronica, who has recently become the CEO of the Heritage House. She has been speculating about her husband. Where we last left with that, Veronica actually hired the man she accidentally hit on the way back home after she got the news about being the CEO for Heritage House. And they worked some type of bribe agreement where he was blackmailing her for keeping the information on who actually hit him. And then we have Veronica, who is leveraging the blackmail by saying, hey, I'll pay you, and then on top of that, go and be a private investigator and see what my husband is doing. So in the last episodes that I saw, he followed Veronica's husband to San Francisco, or it might have been actually LA, and they were at this big fancy house, and it looked like he had been partying and drinking and was seen getting in a car with a few women that were not his wife. So Veronica has been very sus since, and since then, I guess as well, the relationship between Veronica and her sister Carmen have also strengthened because it seems like Carmen may have been enlisted as well to help figure out what Veronica's husband was up to. And in one of the flashback scenes in episode 7, you see that Veronica actually caught her husband cheating with Carmen. The next scene proceeded where Veronica actually thanked Carmen for helping her realize that her husband was cheating. So not really sure what was going on with that, but in this episode 7, you actually do not see the husband at all or see Carmen at all frustrated or sad that that relationship fizzled or they're not in contact. So it seems like Carmen may have also been going along with it. But because of this, now Veronica is dealing with a custody battle for her daughter and actually gets a surprise visit from Margaret, her biological mother, who is also the ex-wife to Joe, who is actually the original family owner of the vineyard, who is now trying to own back and buy back shares of Heritage House so she can take control of the company again, because it was taken away from her father by Joe years and years ago. But in good faith, and just to show Veronica that she wants to make amends for not being there in the past, because she lost custody of the children during that divorce battle between Margaret and Joe, Margaret is now offering her lawyer contacts to help with the custody battle. Now, going back to the little sister, Carmen is still trying to figure out her way and her path in the vineyard and the family company. She's trying to show that she knows her marketing chops, and brings up to her father that there's a magazine that came out that listed the top Latinos in the wine industry, and she was calling out why the family was not in it, considering that Joe and the family were the first vineyard in this world of California to be a vineyard owner. So to, again, flex her marketing chops, she gets a meeting with this company, or with the people behind the magazine, to try to get some publicity for the vineyard. And this woman that she meets is Panamanian, and since she's Mexican, they're talking about how to bridge more of the strong Latino ties within the wine and culinary community. So they end up planning this big event, or they discuss this event they're going to plan at the house so they can get Heritage House to a younger audience, as that seems to be one of the issues and or hurdles that Heritage House is facing in order to become a modern, more appealing wine company for the new generation. But I will call out that I was seeing some interesting tension, or some interesting dynamic between this woman and Carmen. I think Carmen was getting hit on by this woman. After those conversations, you then get fast forwarded back to Father Ramos coming to Letty's house, and actually ended up being volunteered for some school event that Letty is a part of. And again, more conversations and more rumors are spraying around that Father Ramos and Letty are becoming very close, or if anything, their relationship is very visible based on their interactions. And because they're reconnecting so strongly, it definitely makes for an interesting dynamic here between priest and ex-wife. The tension builds up to a point where both Father Ramos, or Billy, and Letty visit Mateo separately, but they end up seeing each other at the house while Mateo is gone. They both come to deliver belated wedding gifts. Father Ramos shows up first. Mateo comes to him asking for some fatherly advice based on some labor union discussions that are happening in the region, and for labor union workers that are trying to negotiate higher wages. So then once Mateo goes away, Father Ramos is in the house, and then Letty comes to visit, knocks on the door. Father Ramos welcomes her, and they get all nostalgic, and then they start discussing what their wedding day was like, and how he was so nervous, and how Letty was also just as nervous, and squeezing his hand and being all dramatic. And then she goes even further to then talk about how she was so happy to be marrying the love of her life and carrying his child. And again, in the context of her saying that to her ex-husband, that would normally be okay, but the fact that she's saying this in this dramatic way, and he's a priest who has vowed to be celibate and not pursue any other temptations, is very odd. So the tension built up so much that they actually end up kissing. Yep, they kiss, and they kissed again, and even Letty says at one point that she needs him. I need you, Billy. I miss you. And after a second to think about the second kiss, Father Ramos excuses himself, says that this shouldn't have happened. He needs to step away. He needs to give them space. So that was a whole thing. I was not expecting that. I mean, yes, you can see tension building up, but I mean, if you're a priest, you're not supposed to get anywhere near those types of temptations. So I don't know what kind of priest he is, but he ended up disappearing the next day and did not show up for this PTA, or parent group meeting, where he again was involved with the planning for some school event. Another priest showed up, and Letty is saddened to hear that he just packed and left. But now to go back to the past timeline. So as I said in the first video, the show is doing a present and past type of timelines, where they're showing young Joe, Letty, and Billy when they were still young, working at the vineyard, in comparison and drawing parallels to the present. So in this past storyline, you see Joe is improving on his English. The relationship with Margaret seems to be growing and building, even though he still has love for Letty. But Letty is clearly in love with Billy, and Billy also loves her. And in these flashback scenes, you also see Joe saw Billy and Letty kissing. And then there's another scene where Joe then goes to Margaret and says, "No, I want to be with you." So there's a lot of young love happening there, and confusion. But it's very clear that this love triangle goes way, way back. However, one parallel that I saw in episode 7 is the discussion about labor conditions and labor discussions around wages for those working on the vineyard. So in the present day, you see the discussions between Veronica and Joe and some labor union workers to come in and negotiate. Well, in the past, you see a scene where Letty is at the vineyard and it's a very hot day, presumably, and she ends up fainting because she's been working so hard and so fast without proper hydration. And after she gets time to rest up, you learn that they only actually get one water break during a very hot day, and it was in the 100+ degrees. So what does she do? She discusses this with Joe and Billy, and Joe agrees to go with her to Mr. Honeycroft, which is Margaret's father, the previous owner of Heritage House, to discuss what can be done. And in that scene, they don't ask for much. They literally just go to the guy and say, we want a second water break and a shaded tent during the hottest days of working. It's not going to cost them anything, they're not going to lose money. However, Mr. Honeycroft does not seem to agree, and he says simply, time is money. So it seems like this episode format of drawing parallels between situations and things going on in the past and being involved in the present. And in the present, like I said, Veronica, who's now the CEO, is handling labor union discussions with this guy who actually was in a previous scene and is like a meet cute moment where him and Veronica discuss about becoming sparrers, or he hits on her while she's working out. But it seems like he had actually known that she does work out there, because in the next scene where they actually meet again to discuss the labor union stuff, he was very much hitting on her and trying to get a date out of her. And well, she was not happy when at the party, he was invited to the party that Carmen was throwing to kind of show Heritage House in a new, younger light and how good they are at treating their employees and have all these different programs to offer for enhanced education. And he ends up offending everyone because he calls out that all this money that went into planning this event could go towards helping increase the wages for their workers, and negotiations, let's say, came to a standstill after that. So following that evening, in the next scene, Carmen is back with this woman from the magazine who helped plan the event, kind of discussing and saying how frustrated and saddened she is that the event didn't go as planned. But the other women see otherwise, and she says it actually probably went pretty well, and now there's a new audience for Heritage House, and it's just the beginning of hopefully more events or more things to come. And she uses that to formally ask Carmen out on a dinner date. And when Carmen asks, is this a work dinner? The woman very directly just says that she hates work dinners. This woman is flirting with Carmen hardcore and is making a strong pass at her. This should be interesting, and I'm curious to see if we see more of this other woman. As we approach the end of the episode, I haven't talked about Antonio much. Antonio is the second oldest next to Veronica, who was in the last episodes kind of pining after the CEO role as well, and just telling Veronica that he will fight as well to make sure that he can get his success as well. But remember, Antonio is also the one who's secretly working behind the scenes with his mom, Margaret, who is also Veronica and Carmen's mom. And he's also in on the plan to get the shares over to her so that she can get more control of the company, because it would take it away from Veronica, and easily Margaret would probably give Antonio the CEO role. So those are his motives. However, in this episode, there doesn't seem to be that much of that tension going on. In one of the flashback scenes, it's shown that Antonio actually found a body. He found some bones in the vineyard, and this man was actually wearing a watch with the inscription and initials of Mr. Honeycroft, who would be his grandfather, Margaret's father, the original owner of Heritage House. So this is brought forth to Joe's attention, and Joe's being accused of murdering and killing Mr. Honeycroft because there's this secret rumor that when he died, the body wasn't found, and then what do you know, Joe stepped in to run the business, and then everything was swept under Margaret's feet, and she was not able to get control of the company through her family. Joe took over, and that is also what is fueling Margaret's drive to take control back of Heritage House. Whether we know or don't know what Joe's up to, Joe does not seem to be hiding anything, and actually wants to use this as an opportunity to get Antonio to trust him more and get him more on his side. Well, at the end of the episode ends quite dramatically, where we see both past and present storylines of what actually happens on the night that person died, and as well identify who the bones belong to. And what do you know? Well, I determined quite easily who the body belonged to, and that's quite funny for me to say, considering that I had not seen the last few episodes, and here I am being able to find out who the body belonged to pretty quickly. The body belonged to Manuel, who's Joe's father. Very dramatically, Antonio said, "This is my grandfather," to which Joe clapped back immediately and said, no, how can it be? And he said, no, it's not that grandfather, it's your father. And to Joe's dismay, he looks at the papers and is just in shock, but discovered that not only that these were the bones of his father's remains, but that he had even died in the first place. It is to my knowledge, since the last episode that I saw, that Joe just saw his father leave when they got kicked out after putting and getting handsy with Margaret a few episodes ago and didn't talk to him since. So the fact that he may not even known that he was dead was a lot for Joe to take in. And that's where the episode ended. Unfortunately, with Hulu, it did not show any teasers for the next episode. I think the new episode premieres either tonight or tomorrow, sometime later this week. But if you still continue to watch the show, let me know what you've thought of the show so far. As the show, I'm assuming, might approach its season 1 finale relatively soon. It's going to be episode 8, so maybe a couple more episodes. Who knows? Let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you enjoyed this follow-up and recap. Maybe I'll do a end of season finale. And I don't know, I'm hopeful that they get picked up for season 2. I mean, I will admit the storyline's predictable. There are some weird cheesy lines and yeah, this scene with Carmen and this woman maybe having some sexual tension between them seemed forced to me. There doesn't seem much chemistry really in that episode, in that scene. There could have been, actually I saw more chemistry between even Veronica and this labor union guy, but even then, like, I'm not sure what, I guess, right, this is their way of soap operas being soap operas, but I don't know if it's really translating to the audience, and I can maybe see why that's not driving more audience views and ratings. It's unfortunate that it got pulled from the live broadcast, but I've enjoyed watching it still. But yeah, I am missing a lot of that wine info, a lot of the behind the scenes look at wine production, but this show is very much heavily in on the drama. Thanks so much for watching. Planning and hoping to share more and upload more videos soon, so please be patient with me. Thank you so much everyone who's liked and subscribed. Please continue to do so, and I'm hopeful to share more videos soon. Thank you. Salud. Bye.